thanks again for coming. We're really excited to dive into how you can make a strong impact with your website homepage. In case you don't know one or both of us, my name is Alyssa Phillips. I own Amped Designs, and I do branding and web design. And when I collaborate with businesses on web design, my goal is to create sites that are beautifully branded, but also provide a very smooth and clean experience for their customers and clients. And at the same time, are very rooted in strategy and making sure that it helps that the business owner work towards their business goals. And today I'm really excited to talk with my friend Maddy. You want to introduce yourself?
Of course. So my name is Maddy. I'm a website copywriter, owner of by Maddy Aucoin, very originally named. I write copy for service providers, and I write what I call honest copy, which is any copy that makes people feel good. It's really transparent about your services, your products, how you can help people, and really just focusing on marketing yourself, making you feel really good to your audience and not focusing on, making people feel not so great or, making them feel ashamed of where they are before you can help them. So that's what I focus on.
Yep. I love that. I love your whole ethos when it comes to ethically writing. So I feel like it probably goes without saying that, your homepage makes a big first impression. I feel like we all know that. Like everyone who has a website, pretty much knows why you have a website, but it's really hard to write your copy and do your own design. I feel like even for us as creatives, it's hard to do it for your own business. It's just like, I don't know about you, Maddy, but like for me, designing for other people all day, when it comes to my own thing, I'm just like, where do I even start sometimes? Yeah.
It is the hardest thing.
It is. So today we're going to walk through some key sections of a website homepage and how you can optimize yours from both a copy and a design standpoint to help your website kind of work harder for your business, essentially. And then we'll also take a look at some of your homepages, with your permission, of course, and give you sort of a personalized review and answer any questions that you have. So there was a form that went out beforehand where you could submit your website for a homepage review. So if you already submitted, we have your site on our list to review. But if you didn't and you're interested in having us look at your homepage, please feel free to drop a link to your site in the chat, and we'll add it. We'll add it into the mix. We'll also answer questions at the end. So if you have any questions while we're going through, just feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll answer as much as we can. Also, I just see that some of you shared your favorite copy lines. And oh, I love these. I love all the wit in yours, Marcos.
They're very creative.
Yeah, and yeah, Justin's that's very like powerful too. I love those. Thanks for sharing. I don't know, Maddy has thoughts as the expert copywriter on the call.
Yeah, they're great. They're super creative. Love them.
Yeah. Okay, so Maddy, I guess like just to kick us off, what would you say is like the main goal, purpose of someone's homepage?
I think your homepage is really just, I think of it kind of like a restaurant menu. Like you're presenting it to your clients, you're presenting it to the people who maybe have never heard of you before, maybe people who have been referred to you. And it's like a restaurant menu. You're looking through it, you see like the appetizers, which is like, how you kind of hook people in, the top of your website. You're getting to the entrees, which are kind of like your services. And then you're giving them some dessert. So you're kind of like wrapping it up and giving them some actions to do. So I really think of it as like, you're kind of giving your audience like different places to go. You're guiding them through. And I think that's one of the most, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but I think that's one of the most missed opportunities for a homepage. And what we're going to talk to you a little bit about today is really just how you can use your homepage to guide people through your website and get them going where you want them to go.
Yeah, I love that. And I totally agree. And actually, I was on a client call yesterday about a client's homepage presentation, and they said, so the homepage is basically like an outline. And the analogy was like, okay, it's like an outline of everything that's in your site. And basically you like click to like get the expanded version. And I was like, yes, exactly. That's actually a perfect way to put it. It's kind of
That's
like,
great.
yeah, kind of like the table of contents, I guess. So
Mhm.
yeah, so we're gonna kind of review some standard sections that are on most homepages. And I feel like there is not like one thing that's gonna work for every single person. But in general, there's a handful of things that a lot of websites can / should have. Hey, Lenore, thanks for joining. Um, and so as an overview, we'll go a little more in depth on each of these, but we have your navigation, which are the links at the top. We have the above the fold section, which in case you're not familiar with that term, that's like what everyone sees when they land on that page before they scroll down. So the fold is like below the scroll. So above the fold is like the first thing they see. And then some sort of overview of your services or your products, whatever it is that you offer, some sort of overview about you or your business. And then there's a footer at the bottom of the website that has other links, maybe has your newsletter, other things like that. So Maddie, I guess, how would you say, or I guess what would be the best way to start with the navigation in terms of like making it clear from a copy standpoint?
Yeah. So your navigation, I think this is one of the things that people don't often think about when you're thinking about copy or design, right? It's kind of just like the menu that's hanging out in the top. You're like, okay, well, people will navigate themselves. They'll get themselves to where they need to go. But I think it's really important to remember, and I think what a lot of people forget is the importance of having a really clear navigation. So again, your navigation is going to help people get where they want to go on your website, whether they're going to your about page, they're going to your services page, they want to fill out an inquiry and contact you. So one of the most important things that you can do and can remember with your nav is making really clear titles to make it really obvious where people should go. So for example, like calling your homepage home or calling your services page services, to make it really obvious, because we don't want people guessing where they have to go. We want to make it as easy as possible for people to get where they want to go. So say you're an interior designer, for example, you could call your services tab design services or simply just services instead of saying something like decor magic. You can kind of see the difference, right? People are like, I don't know what decor magic is, so I don't want to go to that page. We want to go where we know where we're going, right? We don't want to be confused. Confused people don't take action. So most important thing you can remember is just making those clear titles to make it really obvious where people are going to go, and keeping those titles short as well. If you can keep each title like home, services, etc., if you can keep them to one word, max 2 short words, that's going to help people a lot more than if you're being a lot more specific and really getting into detail. You just want to make it really obvious where people should go. I'd love
Yeah.
to hear your thoughts on design for navigation, Alyssa.
Yeah, and that was great. I feel like there's always a balance that we're trying to hit between like being creative and being clear. And this is one place where you have to be clear. And yeah, even though it's fun to think of like fun names for your services and stuff like that, like in that navigation, it has to be super obvious like what it is that they're clicking on.
For
So
sure.
yeah, I love what you said. From a design standpoint, I was thinking similar about the length. So if it's a super long like string of words, sometimes that's really hard to digest, especially because a lot of navigation links are in all caps, which doesn't have to be, but often they are. And if it's too long of a sentence, it's very hard to like process. So yeah, keeping it like short and sweet, I agree. And then also, this is something that I think you might hear me repeat throughout the whole homepage, but making sure the text is large enough. It shouldn't be teeny tiny. I know that sometimes aesthetically like looks pretty, but keep in mind that everyone on your website might not have, excellent vision, or they might be looking at it on their phone or an iPad and it's getting shrunk down or something like that. So just making sure it's large enough for people to see, and that there's enough contrast in the color between the text color and the background that it's on. So tone on tone is also very trendy, like having beige on top of white or light gray on top of white, but that's very, very hard to read, especially for people who, again, may have vision impairment in some way. So the color contrast is another huge part there. And then, yeah, like you said, kind of not too many links. I would try and keep it to 5, maybe 6 links that are in that navigation, just so that, again, it doesn't look too overwhelming and there's not like a gazillion options for people. And then, if you have more than that, can you somehow combine them into drop-down folders, or can you prioritize what is in that top navigation and then find ways to link to the other pages from those pages? But just thinking about how we can keep it like very easily digestible and not overwhelming. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Sweet.
Yeah, that's such a good point, Rachel. Yeah, and that's another plus for having those very, very clear titles for the links too. Because Google doesn't know what design magic is, but it knows what interior design services are. So yeah, absolutely. Okay, what about above the fold? I know this is something that you have been thinking about a lot, Maddie.
Yes. So as Alyssa talked about, the term that we kind of use in the industry as designers or copywriters is above the fold. So again, it's really just that section where you click onto someone's website. Maybe you are on your phone or you're going from Google, wherever you're coming from, and it's the first part of the website you see. So typically kind of in that little section, we've talked about your navigation, and then next you're going to see like the header banner. So typically that looks like you'll have like maybe a carousel there. Maybe you'll just have like a straight image, or maybe you'll just have words, whatever that looks like for you. And this section is huge for your website because it sets the entire precedent for the entire website. It's what people are seeing first. It's what people are making their assumptions about your site on. And so we really want to be as strategic as possible and really thinking about the bigger picture of our website and what the message is that our above the fold is sending. So in terms of copy, I really want you to think about making it really clear and who you are and what you're doing immediately. If someone is seeing this section on your website, the very top section, you want them to look at it, and within a few seconds, you want them to know exactly who you are. So you're a copywriter or a brand designer or a website designer or a florist or whatever. You want them to know who you are. You want them to know what you do immediately and who you help. So again, we want to make that really clear, really obvious for them. And there's a couple ways that we can do that. And we'll talk really quickly about the different sections you can have in your above the fold. So starting out with a header. So this is for any designers or anyone who's familiar with hierarchy on here, this is your H1. This is the most important text on your website. This is like the first text you're going to see other than the navigation on your website. So of course, this is the most important text on your website because again, it's really setting that precedent really early. So what I want you to do within that first section, that first big sentence, is to lay out really clearly what you offer and who it's for in one sentence. I know that sounds really overwhelming. I know that you're probably like, how am I going to encompass all the things that I do really quickly, really clearly? But yeah, you can do it pretty simply. I typically take the approach for people who might be a little bit unsure or not really sure how to do it. Just start by saying what you do. So for example, like colorful, bold brand design, and then who you do it for, which would be home decor brands. So the full sentence, the full header would be colorful, bold brand design for home decor brands. That is going to tell people exactly who you are, what you're doing, and who you're doing it for really clearly in one sentence. And then right below that, your header, you've got your subheader, which is just one sentence below. And again, it's just one sentence, super quick. You're going to tell your reader why your services are benefiting them and how your service is going to improve their life or their business or their day-to-day, whatever that looks like. So again, if we're going back to the example of a brand design, maybe you could say something like, your home decor brand is going to stand out on the shelves with bold brand design from other brands that are also stocked on the shelf, whatever that looks like. That was a little bit of a messy copy, but that is what that could look like. And then we've got our header, we've got our subheader, and now we've got our call to action. So that's like the little button that you see that will tell you where to go, what to do next before you start scrolling on the homepage. The most important thing that you can do with your call to action here is making sure you're using the most important call to action or link for the above the fold section instead of like a random page or something. So usually for most businesses, it's either your contact page or your services page, depending where you want people to go and what the outcome is. Or if you're an e-commerce store, your page would usually be like the shop page. But those are definitely the most important things to keep in mind, is really just thinking about your header, your subheader, and your call to action, and how you can make those as clear as possible to direct your reader.
Yeah, the clarity part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good theme, I feel like, throughout.
Yes.
From a design standpoint, again, with this above the fold section, the first thing people are seeing often, not all the time, but often this is like a large full screen image. Sometimes you might hear it called a hero image. And if you have something like that, my top tip is to make sure that the text on top of it is legible. So sometimes if there's text on top of a photo, it can be hard to read, especially if the background is busy. So really, again, consider like if someone with poor vision is looking at this, can they read this text? And if you have any questions about if it's legible or not, I would recommend considering putting a background behind the text on top of the photo. So, and it can be slightly opaque, or is that less opaque? Slightly transparent. I never know if it's like more or less opaque. Anyway, slightly transparent, I'll just say. So you can still like kind of see the photo through it, but it just gives the text more contrast. So that's one thing that can help. Or kind of, I feel like the go-to is to have this full screen photo, but you don't have to have a full screen photo at the top of your website. Even just making it like 3/4 of the width of the top and then putting the text off to the side of the photo just to make sure it's super, super legible. That's also an option. I would also say with the photo, again, like Maddy said, like this is the first thing that people are seeing, reading. This is like your first impression. So if you're going to use a photo there, make sure it is super, super high quality. It's like the best, most impactful photo that you have. And know that like you don't have to have a photo. I would say if you're a product-based business, you have a strong case for putting a photo of your products up there. But if you're a service-based business, you don't have to go and find a stock photo just because so many websites have a photo there. There are also options to just use like large text that looks very bold and, impactful. Or can you put shapes, or can you have a pattern in the background instead of a photo? Or can you just use, color blocks? Or there are a lot of other ways that you can make an impact without a photo. So don't despair if that's not available to you. Yeah. Okay. And then so something else that Maddy and I were thinking about when we were brainstorming this is, what about when businesses have sort of two audiences? And like for me, like I have my services for businesses, but then I also do a lot of stuff for designers. So what are some tips for like balancing that above the fold first section when you have two audiences?
I would say I would focus on the most important audience, the audience that you are most focused on engaging with. So for example, Alyssa, I feel like your website is more so focused on engaging people who want design services, and then your designers is kind of like your second audience. So that is definitely where I would focus my attention more so in my call to actions and in my above the fold. That is definitely what I would do for that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like in a lot of cases, like one is slightly more important and the other one can be mentioned somewhere on the page. But if there is an instance where there are truly two like equally important audiences, I feel like that's one case. Well, tell me if you agree. I feel like that's one rare case where there can be two different buttons because they're
Mhm.
immediately segmenting themselves into one of these groups. So
Yeah. Or
like
you
I'm
could
trying to
have,
think,
yeah, or you could have like two tabs like in your
yeah,
navigation where it's like home, about, for designers and for business owners, like
yeah,
whatever that looks like. Obviously it's going to, again, like what we've talked about, like it's going to look different for everyone,
yeah.
depending on, but if you have specific questions about it, and this is something that's specific to you, feel free to ask in the chat.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think it's very case by case. Like one example I'm thinking of is like if people like an event space that might have like corporate and weddings, but I think even that, like some that there's still crossover. There's still
Yes,
like common ground you can find between
for
those two
sure.
groups. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Focusing on the main audience and then seeing where
yeah,
you can introduce the secondary audience later, for sure.
yeah. Okay. So people have now been introduced and they scroll down and the next thing that they see often might be some sort of introduction to the services or the products. Kind of, well, I guess like expanding on what you said above the fold, just like a little bit more info. So, what are some copy tips for introducing more information about products or services?
Yeah. So the most important thing I think to remember with this section is really giving people a little bit of context before you start introducing the products or services. So instead of just saying like, here are our services or here are our products, kind of giving them a little bit of a lead in. So thinking about, again, like how your product or service can help people, how you're doing that product or service. So for example, if there's something really unique about the way that you're providing that product or service, or the way that that product or service is, and then allowing yourself to lead into either product descriptions for each of the services, or the photos or whatever that looks like for you. So I would recommend, if you are going to have those services or those products on your homepage, I would definitely recommend you have your main services or products, specifically services. You should have 3 max. I want you to focus on like the main things that you offer. Because if we're introducing a million services, a million products on the homepage, that starts to get really overwhelming. Remember, like we want our homepage to be giving that taste, be giving them like that inspiration to go a little bit further. And I want you to do like a short description for each of the services or products, just so people kind of know what they are getting into. And give them a call to action immediately to your services or to those products, asking them to go to the page to buy it, or to go to your services page to look further. Again, the idea here is really just using that homepage section, the services and products section, really just to give people a better idea about your services and products before they decide to invest more time going to the actual product page or going to the actual services page. So you can have a header that introduces each service title or each product. If you'd like, you can have like 1 to 2 short sentences about how it helps or like why it's important. And then having a call to action, of course, this is really important. Having a call to action button to send them to your services or products. And if it's products or services that has its own individual page per product or service. So like, for example, if you sold, let's say pens, I'm looking at some pens right now. So let's say you sold different kinds of pens and you have like the 3 main types of pens listed. Your call to action under each would be sending them to the specific product page for that. And then you could also have a separate call to action. That's like a shop now, shop all button, just so that you're sending them specifically to those services or products. So again, Keep it short. You want them to see it, be inspired by it, be excited by it, and then move on to the exact page. So that's what I want you to keep in mind for that. Alyssa, I'd love to hear your thoughts about design for that section.
I love that you said 3 because when I was brainstorming, I was also like 3. That's like the magic number. It's like
Yep.
more
It
than
always
that.
is.
Yeah, more than that, it starts to get overwhelming.
Mhm.
So I agree. And I love to display like 3 core services or 3 feature products in like just a grid of 3 columns. And I agree with everything you said about keeping it short and sweet, like bite size. When people are looking at 3 things next to each other, if it's like a long essay, that's very hard to digest again. So I agree with everything you said. I mean, you can also have them one after another as you scroll down the page. I think if you are opting for that, then I would just take care to have the most important thing first, like the most the service that you're trying to sell the most, or the best selling product be the first thing so that people see that first and then scroll down. And then in terms of style, design, photos, when it comes to services, again, I don't think that photos are a must. They're an enhancement. But if you don't have photos that represent you, I would avoid looking for stock photos of like random people. And instead focus on using color or shapes, or making the text more bold or something to stand out more, as opposed to finding photos that really don't resonate. If you have products though, we definitely want to have high quality photos of the product so people can see exactly what they're going to get. I see this question. Oh, thanks for answering, Maddie. And don't you have a form to fill out to see if the business to business interaction would be beneficial, like a vetting form? Oh, yeah. Yeah, like Maddie said, yeah, I have that on my contact page. I think that's a common place to put it. Yeah, most of my call to actions on my homepage personally that are inviting people to like book services are going to the contact page. So I don't have the actual form on there because I'm also hoping that they will explore other things on the site before they just like rush to reach out. So yeah, I think it is also dependent on like what your priority is. Like, everyone's going to have a different uh, goal with that too. So yeah. Let's see. Okay, so talked about services. And then the last thing that most of us are probably going to have somewhere on our homepage is something about yourself, introducing yourself or your business.
Yes. So I find that a lot of people with this section take it as like a mini version of the about page. But this on your homepage, it's not a full bio section. It's not a fun fact section, as much as I love fun facts on websites. But really this section on your homepage, again, like the other sections we've talked about, we want it to be brief, and we want to focus on telling our audience how they can help, how we can help, sorry. Again, like we really just want to make sure that we're like hitting the highlights. We don't necessarily need to talk about like our full education or our full experience, just like really making it short and sweet, but really specific in terms of like exactly how we're helping. Again, like we've talked about with other sections, it's basically so that people can like get that little bit of information, and then if they're interested in seeing more, they can go right to your about page. So this should be like 2-3 sentences max on your homepage. Really just thinking about like, this is my role. So I'm a copywriter and this is how I help my clients or customers. And then linking to your about page as your call to action, because again, people will go there if they want to know more about you.
Yeah. Agreed, of course. From a design standpoint, I would say kind of the same things I've been saying, like making sure text is legible, text is a good size, all that. This is one place where I definitely would advocate for a photo of yourself. Especially when it comes to small businesses and solopreneurs, people like really love to relate to the person behind the business. So that's always helpful and great. Yeah. And then when it comes to other stuff on the homepage, I think the rest of this really varies based on what you do, what your goals are, what you value as a business owner, but some other things that you could consider including on your homepage could be testimonials, product reviews, social proof, if you've ever heard that term, which could take the form of like places that you have been featured or your products have been featured, podcasts you've been a part of, things like that. Anything else that you want to highlight? Like if you have a workshop that you do regularly, or if you, if you have like a whole educational arm of your business, and kind of like Lenore said, you want to highlight your blog, like highlighting anything else that is providing value and, to your customers. Newsletter sign up if you have that. Yeah, is there anything else that comes to mind for you, Maddy?
Honestly, not that I can think of. That's really great. Yeah, in terms of like the highlights that you talked about with the offers, a lot of people like use that for like their digital products. Like if you have anything to promote in terms of that, or like smaller offers that maybe don't necessarily fit within that, the max free services. Just kind of, yeah, giving people that little taste of stuff just to kind of get them onto the next. But yeah, those are great. And then I think the last thing is the footer of the website. So this is like the very bottom of your website after you've shown off your blog, your newsletter, you've given the testimonials. And so this is the spot where you have your extra navigation at the bottom so that people are able to, they scroll all the way down and they want to navigate themselves back to another page. So the most important things that you can think about in terms of copy for your footer, again, is making sure your navigation titles are clear. If you leave anything with this workshop, I just want you to know that like everything should just be so clear and so specific, so focused. I feel like I say that every single day, probably a million times a day. I should get it tattooed on me at this point. But just making sure everything is really clear where people are going. And then something else you can do for SEO and just for clarity to reiterate like what you do and who you serve, especially if people are already at the bottom, you might as well reiterate it, make it clear, is you can add like your location. So you could say like, for example, I'm based in like Asheville, North Carolina. And you could say like your job title. So like I'm a website copywriter. And like reiterate like who you do it for if you want. This can all help with SEO, or if people are hanging it at the bottom of your website, they've made it all the way there. That just kind of reminds them like, yeah, that's exactly what this person does. Maybe it's for me. Maybe I'm here at the nav and this is where I want to maybe go through a few things.
Yeah. Yeah. I also would say from a design standpoint, like breaking things into categories so it doesn't just look like a wall of text. So like your contact info is its own little block. Then some of your navigation links are their own little block. And then like if you have, I don't know, website credits or, privacy policy links, that kind of stuff, like its own little block, just to kind of
So important.
visually break it up. And if your navigation links from the top of your site do not stay at the top of your site when people scroll, I do think it's a good idea to include your logo in the footer again, kind of like you said, Maddie, just as a reminder of like, this is the site you're on, this is the brand, this is who we are. And often that the logo will link back to your homepage as well. So if they're on another page of your site and they go down and click your logo, they'll go back to the homepage, which is helpful if they're, trying to get back because often we don't have home in the navigation links at the top. So just an easy way for them to get back to where they started. And yeah, I also think sometimes depending on how long people have scrolled for, it can be helpful to reiterate your most important call to action. So like if you're trying to get people to go to your contact page and inquire, then you can reiterate that and have a button for that. Or if you're trying to get people to go shop in your store, like reiterate shop now, just because once they've ingested all of this other information, it's like bringing them back to the main goal. So yeah. Yeah. Okay. So as kind of like a summary, I think we've said clarity when it comes to copy.
Clarity for sure. 100%.
From in design, I think I've mentioned a couple times, like make sure it's legible, like it's not too small. There's enough contrast in the color on the background. And like text on photos needs to be legible. So like legibility, that's maybe the thing that I need to get a tattoo of. Like
Yeah.
I said. Um, and yeah, any other like last tips that you would give before we move into the review section?
You know what? I think that's great. I think in general, people need to remember legibility in terms of like what it actually looks like. So, obviously making sure that you can actually read the text, and making it really easy for people to read the text. So again, being really clear, and making that easy to read is obviously super helpful. And then, yeah, again, just like thinking about clarity, how can you make it super obvious for people what you do, how you help them, and where they need to go. I want you to think of like your website and the way you're writing copy and even your design, right? Because your design plays a huge part in this, is you're essentially holding your audience's hand and like walking them through their website, your website. So you're in charge, you're the one who's taking them where they need to go. That's your job, your website's job. So you can definitely do that through your design and copy. And I think we've given you some great tips for that. And I think, Alyssa, would you like to prefer to start with some of the questions that we got beforehand or the reviews?
Yeah, I feel like we could answer the questions pretty quickly and
Okay,
then
awesome.
reviews.
And then if
So,
anyone else has any other questions, you can just pop them in the chat. We will do our absolute best to get to all of them.
yeah. Okay, I'll queue up the first homepage for review.
Yeah,
And do
go for it.
do you want to answer Lenore?
I'll go for it.
Okay.
So we have okay. We have a quick question from Katie about her website as a photographer. We'll actually be looking at Katie's website in a little bit, if we've got the time. But Katie says, as a photographer, my site is pretty photo heavy. How do I balance more text without making it too overwhelming for people? Which is totally fair. I feel like, especially if you are someone who does something very visual, obviously, like you want to be able to really show people really easily, like what your work is. But I want you to remember that people are coming to your website for your work, but they also want to hear what you can do for them, right? Obviously, like photos are amazing and they are so valuable for your website. But people also want to know about like the experience, the process, the kinds of people that you work with and the kinds of people that like you want to work with. So I want you to think about like where you can add text-based sections, more text-based sections, either that are just like standalone text or some with minimal photos. Alyssa did a great job in her design section about talking about you don't always need all of the photos. And I think you can definitely take advantage of having a portfolio section on your website as well. But yeah, I want you, like, especially in your copy, you can definitely think about like answering questions that people often ask you, like if there's things that people are coming to you and they often have questions about, or reasons like why they're coming to you specifically, or if they maybe have some like objections or like reasons why they're thinking about like maybe not booking a photographer in general, and how you can answer those in your copy. So yeah, I would definitely recommend like where you can adding just like those text-based sections. And yeah, just remembering that like people want to have that information. People want to read that information. We all get information differently. Some of us make a decision based on seeing pictures. Some of us make it a buying decision based on what they read. So yeah, just remembering that you can balance those text and words just by adding some of those just text-based sections. And yeah, definitely take advantage of that portfolio page as much as you can.
Mhm. Yeah, that was a great answer. I mean, I agree. I think like it's important to give the photos enough space to shine if you're a photographer, because that is your product. So obviously we want that to be like front and center. But then like again, like we don't have to put text on top of photos, like it can go under it or next to it. And like you said, Maddie, like not hiding the text because people still need to get the information. So I definitely think there's room for both. Okay, I feel like we kind of covered this a little bit, but Lenore also asked if you have a couple of blog pages with different audiences or topics, how do you handle it on your homepage? I mean, I would say similar to what we said about two audiences before, like if one of them is more prominent and more important, then I would highlight that.
Mhm.
Um, because if we have like you know, 3 different sections of blog posts on the homepage, that's a little bit overwhelming. But I think, well, I'm curious what you think, but I was going to say, I think it's a very like case by case. This is one of those things where I feel like I need to see what exactly what someone's talking about.
Yes.
But I would kind of just give like a general description of the blog and list like it's for this, this, and this, or it's this audience and this audience, and then pull like the most recent posts or something like that. And then like people can find out more if they are interested, basically. And then we have to like bombard them.
Yeah, I'm not sure how this works on Squarespace because I'm not a designer, but I think that you could probably pull the categories. Like if you're categorizing your blog post under like this is just an example, but like going back to Alyssa's of like for designers versus like for business owners, because some of those things are probably going to overlap. I find that often blog posts, even when they're for different audiences, they can often have some overlap. So just thinking about like, can you pull those categories and have like one category section that's like for this audience and the other category it's like for this audience. But yeah, I agree. It's hard to tell without seeing it, but that would be my overall recommendation.
Yeah. Okay. So let me go ahead and share my screen for our reviews. And if anyone in chat is interested in having our eyes on your homepage, feel free to drop your site. We will definitely try to prioritize the people who are here. And anyone who's not, hopefully they'll watch the recording. And anything that we don't get to, I don't want to speak for Maddy, but I might try and do on like an Instagram reel or something like that. But what we're going to try to do is keep these to about 3 minutes total. So like a bite-sized little review. And I will watch the clock. I see Katie's, so I'll add that to our list. And let me just also read Lenore's question as I bring up her site so that we can try to address it. Her question was, this Squarespace template lets you click on the images to go to the corresponding portfolios. Can you tell that the images lead to the artist portfolios? And each artist's name appears on the homepage only in the homepage image only when you hover, not in the navigation. Is there a better way to do this? Sorry, I haven't shared it yet. I'm trying to find the share button. Okay, here it is. Okay. Okay, so initially, from a design standpoint, I would say that I do think that there can be some crossover between the reviews and what we've talked about, and some things that you might be able to like apply to your own website too. So to avoid sounding redundant, just wanted to give that disclaimer. But I would say that for these, I think this is what she's asking about, the names on hover.
Right.
I would recommend like putting a short description underneath them with the artist name and a button, because while it is a little bit light when you hover over it, it's hard to see the text. And yeah, because it's not clear, it'd be great if there was some more context under each of them. Yeah.
Yes. I agree with that. Yeah, I think, Alyssa, if you want to scroll to the above the fold. So this is a great example of what your above the fold section is. I would definitely recommend kind of like what we talked about in the workshop, really focusing on having a header and a subheader that specifically tell people like what it is that they are coming into. It's great that you've got like the business name, like the Artist Peaceable Collective. I'm sorry, I cannot read today apparently. But yeah, I think people will want a little bit more context again before they scroll. They want to know what they're getting into. And so like just telling people like, this is what it is, this is who it's for, and giving them a reason to want to scroll and to see the galleries for sure. And I agree, Alyssa, like adding a little bit of context under each photo and like letting people know why they should click into the galleries, what they can do when they get to the galleries. Like, is the purpose to see what's for sale, or is the purpose just to like view online, like to get an example of people's art, like more as a portfolio? So yeah, I feel like definitely like a little bit more context in like the header and then above the galleries as well.
Yeah, and then I would also recommend incorporating some of our other notes about maybe shortening these links so that they're very bite-sized. And I would also see if you have some opportunities to break this page into sections. It kind of seems like there's the intro here, and then this kind of like all melding together. So maybe we have this section about the artists with the adjustment that we talked about with the text underneath. And then, this section about you here, could we put a photo of you there, or each of you, or maybe we have two different sections for each of the artists with a little short bio. And then, maybe add another section that is going to the framed prints, and with different colored backgrounds, just so we have some like visual breakup of the information. And then I would also recommend, trying not all caps for all of the text. For headlines, I think it's okay, but for sentences like this, it's a little hard to read. So see if that helps. Okay. So I don't know if that was 3 minutes. I wasn't watching the clock like I said I was going to. Let me go to the next one. Okay, so this one is Naked Tank. And let's see, I'll do a quick scroll so everyone can see.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we can focus on with this site is really just, again, with the above the fold section. I feel like this is going to be something that we mention frequently, but I think that just reiterates like how important the above the fold section is really just giving clarity about what the product is and who it's for. Just like letting people know like kind of what they're getting into, especially if you're on mobile. You can see the nav at the top on your desktop, but if you're on your phone, you you can't see like the entire nav. Like you can't see that it's like nursing bundles, nursing pads. So people might be getting onto the page and they're like, nurse with confidence. They may be like, well, like, I don't know what that is. Like people might be thinking about like nursing, like the profession. Is kind of where my mind immediately jumps to. But like, again, just like really focusing on what the product is, who it's for. And there's a great section a little bit lower that talks about like postpartum. I think it's a blue section that like we're revolutionizing postpartum. That's a great intro section that could definitely be bumped up to above the products, or even included like in your header and subheader and your call to action on your above the fold. Remember when you are doing any kind of page, but really a home page, like you want to focus on like the good stuff being at the top, because after a while you'll start to lose people. Like not everyone's going to scroll to the bottom. So really just focusing on like making sure all the good information's at the top instead of the bottom. But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree, as per usual. I think that overall, this is not like a terrible design. It's not like there are a ton of issues or it's hard to read or anything. I do think there are some spots where the text could be larger or darker. Like this is a little bit hard to read on this background. The contrast could be more contrast. And maybe a little bit larger. And then again, with the text on the photos, it's not the worst, but it could have more contrast. So I would maybe either, put more of an overlay on these photos, or put the text below the photos, or put a background behind the text or something like that. At the top, obviously agree with everything you said about the clarity of what it is. The carousel, I also would consider moving away from this and just having one message like what Maddy described, and potentially just one image as well. The carousel, there's a lot of research behind, like people don't often click through. It's also not great for SEO because this is a little bit technical, so I hope that this makes sense. But what this is doing is pulling multiple header 1 tags, which is not good for SEO. So we want to have one header 1, like Maddy said. I'm going to put a link in the chat. This is something that I share with my web design clients about why carousels are not recommended. So if you're open to shifting away from that, I think we can make an impact without the scroll. Yeah. And like I said, it's not that overall, I don't think the design is like awful by any means. I do think like if in the future you did want to make a real impact, you do have an opportunity to do something like really different and really eye-catching. But as like looking at this, like I'm not like I can't read it. It's not like I can't read it or you know, I'm not I am seeing like different color blocks. It's easy to navigate. Like it's obvious what a button is. So like it's not problematic, if that makes sense. Okay.
Sure. I
Let
think
me,
we might only have time for one more because there's a couple things
okay.
that we want to tell you at the end
Yes.
as
Okay.
well.
Let's do Katie's because she put hers in there and I know she's here. And I don't know if everyone else is here. If that sounds okay to you,
Yeah,
Maddie.
let's do it.
And then, yeah, maybe we can do our goodbyes. And then I don't know if you have time to stay to do like one or two more. I don't know. We'll cross that bridge. Okay, here's Katie's. Let me do a quick scroll. Okay, so off the bat, I would say similarly that the text on the photo, I almost didn't even notice it. So I would think about, well, I would enlarge the photo too, because this is like beautiful
It's
jewelry that's
beautiful.
kind of getting hidden behind this thing before it before it jumps back. So I would really consider like extending that and then maybe putting like a background behind the text or you know putting the text over on the background to the side or something like that. Um
Yeah, I would say like with that same section, I think again with just telling people like a little bit like what they can expect. So I know you offer like from the nav, I can tell that you offer like everyday pieces and also engagement rings. And so maybe you could mention something like that, like engagement rings and everyday jewelry for whoever like would like whatever kind of buyer would like prefer that like the kind of people you work with or like your design style. So if you have like a little bit more of a whimsical style or a little bit more of a bold style, you can mention that there. Again, just like for SEO purposes, because then if someone's searching like in like bold engagement rings or like whimsical engagement rings, that's going to help with that for sure. And then again, just like giving people that bit of information to know whether it's for them or not without even scrolling.
mhm. Yeah, I think there could be some more context in the other sections as well. So like I love that you have a photo of yourself. I think we could expand a little bit more with a short bio. And then with these, some sort of headline about products. And then yeah, I think
Are the photos clickable or is there a call to action? Oh, they're clickable.
um
Okay.
actually they're not clickable. It's just images.
Okay. Okay.
So, okay. So I think we could adjust this to be either like 3 categories that you click into or like 3 featured products. What do you think, Maddie?
I agree with that. Yeah, I think it like very much makes sense. It's like a clickable option. Like I want to be able to click to like see like if I'm seeing like gemstones. Sorry, I'm just getting really close to my screen. I'm one of those people who has a hard time reading. So like seeing like a classic round brilliant diamond ring with the modern twist. I want to be able to like click on it and be like, oh, this is like I want to get there
I'll buy
immediately. Kind
that.
of like
Yeah.
what you're talking about with the call to action. So yeah, either making it clickable or like having that call to action so that people can get there right away. So that people aren't like, I don't know how to get there, but I really love this ring. We kind of want to
Yeah.
avoid that. We want people to just be able to, you know, be like, yeah, I love it. Let's do the thing.
Yeah. Okay, I know those were really fast and like bite size. So hopefully some of those things are things that you could apply to your own website too if we didn't get to yours. I know I'm gonna try to do little reels about the others that we didn't get to. And you know, I don't want to speak for you, Maddie. You can do it whatever you want. Or we could do it together. That could be fun.
That's super fun.
But yeah, okay. So before everyone starts to leave, we did want to just thank you again for coming and for submitting your sites and being here with us this afternoon. Let me just share in the chat where you can find each of us. We would love to connect with you on social media, or if you have other questions about your copy or design. And then we really had a good time when we were planning this. We were
And
like,
doing the website reviews here. That was really
yes,
fun.
yeah, that was fun. And like when we were doing the reviews, we were like, I wish we could just spend like more time with each individual one. So we're like, well, why don't we? So we put together a special offer for everyone who is here. So each of us I offer web design reviews and Maddy offers copywriting reviews. So we basically combined it into one package where you can get a web design and copy review from both of us. So here's the link if that sounds of interest to you. And in this review, we will go in depth on 5 of your website pages. So not just your homepage, and you'll get our review packet that outlines what is and is not working and our recommendations for you, how you can improve both your website and your design. And we also both agreed that if you do decide to then book design and or writing services after your review, $300 of the cost of the review can go towards your branding or design, web design and or copywriting. So we want to make sure that it's, valuable if you want to like, take more action after that.
Yeah.
So
And
check it out.
we'll send you the replay shortly after, so that if you want to catch up on anything, or if there's anything that you missed, or you want to go through, you'll be able to catch that replay. And we'll also send you the link again for the to book your review. They're pretty limited just because we want to make sure that we're able to like really prioritize the people who book them. So yeah, we'll send you all of that information after so that you have it with you.
Yeah. And Lenore asked in a month or two. So if you go to the page, you'll see that there are a handful of weeks. Basically, we can do one a week for a handful of time. I think like beyond that, if you're interested, you're welcome to reach out, and Maddy and I will see if, talk if we're available. We'll make it work, basically.
Case by case, yeah. Outside of
Yeah.
it, for sure.
Yeah. Thanks for asking.
Awesome.
Okay, well, thanks again.